Now the FIRE movement, what is it? What does FIRE stand for? Well, FIRE stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early, right? So this is a whole community of people that are taking their retirement into their own hands, like I've talked about this week, and they are trying to retire early. They're not trying to take some traditional view of retirement. They're not trying to wait until they're in their late 50s, 60s, 70s to retire. They're trying to retire in their mid to late 30s or early 40s. They're trying to get out quick and be able to enjoy their life. They're trying to be able to enjoy the things that they have and the things that they've built for themselves at a very early age. The FIRE movement is a movement dedicated to a program of extreme savings and investment that allows proponents to retire far earlier than traditional budgets and retirement plans would allow. So this is a bit extreme, right? The FIRE movement is not something that is for everybody, but it is something that I do encourage if it's something that you want to do, because even if you shoot to be a FIRE retiree, even if you're trying to retire at an early age and you don't quite make it, well, you're still going to be way better off than somebody who doesn't try, who isn't trying to retire at an early age. Because we know that one of the key components of our investing, especially, is time, and of our ability to build assets is time. And the less time that you have, the more money you're going to have to put away, and the greater the rate of return you're going to have to make in a shorter period of time to get to the same level of assets that you would have if you just had more time and you could invest more conservatively over that longer period of time and come up with the same amount, right? So if you're going to do it in a shorter period of time, you have to make some changes. You have to be a little riskier or a lot more extreme. And the FIRE movement leans towards more being extreme, right? Being very extreme with your savings, very extreme with your investing, right? By dedicating up to 70% of income to savings, followers of the FIRE movement may eventually be able to quit their jobs and live solely off of small withdrawals from their portfolios, because the conventional retirement age is in the 60s, right? Some say 65, some say 61, some say, right, 62, whatever, right? We talked about this yesterday. Retirement is not an age, but it is a number. But people view it as an age, and they do so in an incorrect manner. Of course, FIRE is not a surefire plan, and extremely high rates of saving at the expense of current quality of life and lifestyle should be considered. So this idea of the FIRE movement, it was born out of a 1992 best-selling book, Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin and Joe Dominguez. FIRE came to embody a core premise of the book, juxtaposing expenses and time spent at work against hours of your life. Every expense is compared to the time spent at work in order to purchase whatever it is that you want to purchase, right? So this whole idea of time is valuable, right? And they're trying to buy back time, trying to sacrifice more in the short term in order to get to this idea of long-term financial freedom, which I think is a fantastic thing. I think it's fantastic in order to sacrifice and give up things in the short term in order to get to some long-term goal, right? And especially if we're sticking to the idea that retirement is a number and not an age, because if you're trying to retire early, well, obviously retirement is not an age for you. It is some amount of money that you can sustain yourself on over the long term, but that's also the difficult part. The difficult part is that you have to come up with a certain amount of money to sustain yourself over the long term, which is very, very difficult. Okay. In more recent years, millennials in particular have embraced the FIRE movement with the aim of retiring well before their traditional retirement ages. And this is, like I said, I believe it to be a very brave endeavor, a very awesome endeavor that a lot of millennials have taken on. Proponents of the extreme saving lifestyle often begin by remaining for several years in traditional workforce in order to save up 70% of their yearly income. Once their savings reach approximately 30 times their yearly expenses, often roughly $1 million, they may quit their day jobs or completely retire from any form of employment altogether. So the FIRE movement is not necessarily just you quitting your job and not working ever again, but the FIRE movement is I'm going to stick in this 9-to-5 workforce type of job, and I'm going to make the money that I can make and invest heavily and do a lot of sacrificing in the short term. And then in the long term, I can do whatever I want to do. Yes, you want to have the money there so you can sustain yourself, right? And the people who try to build up these amounts of money, right, are doing so they can sustain themselves. But it doesn't mean that they're never going to work again. It just may mean that they now have the freedom to do whatever they want to, or start a business that they want to start, or do something that brings out the passion in them a lot more than the work that they were doing. So this is their way of trying to find financial freedom. And if you know me, you know this show, you've watched this show, you've listened, right? You know that I am a huge proponent of having financial freedom. When you attain financial freedom, it's all about options. You have options to do things with your money that you didn't have before. And you have options to do things with your time that you did not have before. And it is just a freeing and fulfilling thing. And there are different levels to financial freedom. But you get to the level of some FIRE retirees, and you really see that these individuals have truly attained the thing that a lot of us seek to attain. And that is that financial freedom where you don't have to do anything if you don't want to, but you can sustain yourself with the money that you've set aside. So to cover their living expenses after retiring at a young age, FIRE devotees make small withdrawals from their savings, typically around 3 to 4% annually, depending on the size of their savings and desired lifestyle. This requires extreme diligence to monitor expenses and continued maintenance and reallocation of their investments. We've talked about this, right? We've talked about these things, these signs, I talked about it yesterday, these signs that you are not financially ready to retire. Well, the FIRE retirees have really checked off all of those things. They don't have any signs that they're not prepared to retire. They're really being meticulous and really taking all of the time, making sure that their expenses and as their expenses grow, that they're going to be able to pay for those expenses, that their investments are properly allocated, and that they're going to be able to take the income that they need off of their investments, right? They're very diligent to make sure that their savings rate is going to allow them to get to the point where they can actually stop working, right? And that their withdrawal rate in retirement is small enough to where they can continue to do that for a long period of time. And so these people are very, very prepared. They do a lot of planning. And if you want to be one of them, you have to do the same thing. You have to do a lot of planning. You have to be very meticulous. You have to be very thoughtful about your retirement lifestyle,